Today we are talking about London, Ontario, unusual happenings in London's past. Can you believe it? Audio podcast part 3. I'm pleased to share the stories of some more unusual happenings as we have done in the first 2 parts. There's some pretty interesting things that have gone on in the city of London in the old days. We're going to start off with the story about the shoe car. Now, you may have noticed on my thumbnail for this video, the picture of the shoe car is featured. The shop was called the First Class Shoe Repair, and it was located on Richmond Street before the railway overpass was built. It was right there along where the railway station side was. And in the 1930s, the car that was shaped like a shoe delivered the shoes that were repaired to the people at home. Before that time, it was delivered by bicycle, and apparently the car was orange and black. So fascinating story. These people were very good marketers. It got a lot of attention as it went around the city in the 1930s, and so we don't have anything like that since, and I've never seen anything like that. If you want to look at other examples of that photo, you can see it in my Londoners Remember Part 2 book, and or you can see it on the YouTube channel, my Old Stuff Show channel. Go to youtube.com Old Stuff Show and then search some highlights of London, Ontario's past. Another very unusual thing that happened in London was the harvesting of ice at the coves. The London Advertiser reported on February the 4th, 1928, that a record 15,000 tons of ice had been harvested. Now, I recall seeing pictures of people using great big saws to saw right down into the ice into the water. It happened to be on that day, especially cold weather, and the water was a little deeper than usual that year. Of course, the ice was used in home ice boxes, which everybody seemed to have in those days, up to the 1950s in many cases, and businesses requiring ice. The fact that it was harvested in the coves in the river doesn't seem possible today, but it did happen. The next unusual thing in terms of comparing it to today would be the annual school picnic in London in the 1920s. Every public school child was given a day off in June to go to this picnic, and it was held in Springbank Park. The kids would take the open-sided streetcars to Springbank Park, and with them they would have their favorite food in the shoebox, which seemed to be the way they liked to carry their picnic lunch. Once they got there, there were rides and there were games, and people I've talked to said that if they had somewhere between 10 cents and 25 cents, they'd have a pretty good day. And all the kids there were dressed in their school colors. So hard to believe that would happen in today's park, today's school system, but it was very much done in the 20s, and the kids looked forward to it every year. One of the things too that you probably realize is that in the old days, before there were bathrooms inside plumbing, there were outhouses, and that became a particularly significant problem at Halloween time. Someone told me that it seemed that the outhouse was tipped over often at Halloween. And one particular place, I was talking to a gentleman, said that his father got smart one Halloween night, and just after it got dark, he moved the outhouse forward another maybe 10 feet. And as the kids snuck up, sure enough, they fell into the hole, and that seemed to be the last time that happened, so problem solved. One article that I read in a Globe and Mail dated December 11th, 1936 is extremely interesting, very unusual. The headline was "School System Blamed for Lack of Maids." Now, maids were very much needed in the 1930s, and I'd just like to quote the article because it's hard to imagine that was actually stated by a trustee. He says, "I can't believe that," and this is Trustee Carruthers, school named after him today, "I can't believe that this board would sit by and do nothing when in a city of 10,000 people it is impossible to get domestic help. Our schools are turning out girls whose heads are filled with Latin, French, geometry, and algebra for which they have no inclination and obtain no benefit. They should be taught domestic sciences, how to run homes, make budgets." That was hard to believe, but that was society in those days, and that's how they perceived the role of girls in the home, the role of wives in the home, and compared to today, very unusual times. One other thing that happened in London, which was extremely interesting and rather unusual, was the circus parade. And in the 1920s especially, circuses like the Ringling Circus would come to town, and it was run like a military operation. They would pull into London by train, stop around the area where Western Fair is today, and get organized for a big parade, which took place down Dundas Street. And I've seen pictures of this, and it included many, many big elephants. It included camels. It included zebras and many other animals, all marching down Dundas Street. And of course, where there were animals, there was stuff left behind by animals, and apparently there were men with shovels and pails that walked behind. Orville Miller, who was a well-known London historian, told me about watching this from his favorite spot on the street at the bank building at the corner of the northeast side of Dundas and Richmond. It wasn't the parade that he said he so much remembered, but the words that were engraved in stone above the bank entrance. That said, and I quote here, "The sun will never set on the British Empire." Now, Orville had a pretty good sense of humor, and he said with a laugh, "Not only is the bank gone, but so is the British Empire." And that particular location actually had 3 different banks. And up until just a few years ago, there was Bank of Commerce, I believe, was the bank. So these are fun things to remember, and we can put them in the category of unusual for sure. Society was just different, and for us in today's society, to think about some of these things happening was rather unusual for sure. So that's the end of my part 3, and I hope that you find that interesting. I hope you've had a chance to look at the first podcast and the second podcast. I particularly like the second podcast because there were 2 really quite unique situations that I described. So I hope you make an effort to see that one as well. So we will try and put together a part 4, and there are some more stories that I can share with you, and I hope to have you listen at that time. Thank you. Bye.